Hi there, everyone. Welcome. My name is Marvell Adams Jr., and I serve as CEO of Caregiver Action Network. Thanks so much for joining us today as we kick off our webinar series for National Family Caregivers Month. This year's theme, Plug into Care, is more important than ever because throughout this month and beyond, we'll be talking about how caregivers can really find ways to plug into care and find resources and help that they need when they need it. And so finding those resources is not only a part of caregiving, but it can be one that's rather challenging and daunting. And so part of today's conversation, as well as the rest of our webinar series, will really help caregivers find that information, find it in a way that's supportive, accessible, and easy to understand. Part of this is really about navigation and understanding how can a caregiver find the resources they need and not be overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there to find. Plug into Care is about being able to have a centralized hub that we've created with dozens of not-for-profits providing information on caregiving across many different subjects and topics. And part of that really is meeting the broader goal of empowering caregivers to make informed decisions about care, understanding what coverage they have, and really finding community support. So, really, for today's conversation and the agenda, we want to be able to share not only information that's timely and helpful for everyone, but also really giving everyone an overview of the caregiving landscape and understanding what types of subject matter is going to be really impactful for caregivers out there. So with that, I'd like to welcome our speakers for today and our co-host, Andrew Kantor. Andrew, welcome to our webinar and really looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Hi, Marvell. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really looking forward to talking about this with you.
Yeah. Andrew, if you could just tell everyone viewing us today a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Yeah, so my name's Andrew Kantor. I'm a partner at the law firm of Kantor Kantor. We've been around for about 20 years. I haven't been a lawyer that long. We've been around for about 20 years. We are a law firm that specializes in suing insurance companies when they don't pay claims they're supposed to pay. And for about the last decade, one of my specialties, as well as my father, has been fighting the denials of long-term care insurance claims, litigating the claims, helping people get their appeals paid, helping people file the claims. And that's been a really big focus of our firm over the past few years.
You know, that's a really impactful way to start off our conversation because I think, caregivers are going to find challenges and barriers along their journey, and being able to traverse those in a way that is that they can feel confident that they have the right information and that they can find the right partners to help support them through that journey and to really meet those challenges head on. So, could we just start off with just kind of a little bit about the basics? So what is long-term care insurance?
Yeah, long-term care insurance is a specialized form of insurance which is designed to help you pay for services you need when you can no longer care for yourself because of a medical issue, whether it's chronic illness, disability, or cognitive decline, such as dementia or Alzheimer's. Unlike health insurance, which is designed to actually, treat a medical issue, long-term care insurance is designed to help you pay for the services you need and help you live safely and comfortably when your health makes it impossible to do so on your own.
Gotcha. So that makes a lot of sense. So being able to have that, reassurance that it'll be there for you when you need it, and
Exactly.
so, understanding that, I can imagine an individual going out and trying to find and figure out, information on long-term care insurance or other needs they may have, and running into, the possibility of getting scammed, and being targeted for scams. Can you tell our audience a little bit about, what does it look like to be able to be in a safer position and not being as susceptible to scams out there?
Yeah, well, there's two, I'd say, categories of scams out there when it comes to long-term care insurance. The one is the sales scam, where you don't have coverage yet and there's a scam involved in the coverage. And the other is scams that can happen once you already have coverage. And I use the term scam a little bit loosely because some things I define as scams are things insurance companies are doing, which could really harm your rights. So, first, the biggest, I think, really the main sales policy scam out there is fake policies.
Mm,
People will target elderly people, sick people, and they will offer them long-term care insurance. What they will do is offer it for extraordinarily low rates, with very big benefits, where the person might think, wow, I tried to get this same coverage somewhere else and it cost me 5 times as much and I got a fraction. Well, unfortunately, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And
Hmm.
there's just a scam operation out there, multiple, that will just try and get you to buy fake policies. They will create resources which, even to me, look real. They look real. It
Hmm.
looks like they're certified. The ability for scammers to replicate real looking things is gotten really impressive over the past few years. I think with AI, it's getting easier. Not to scare you too much, there are some ways to prevent this. So, first, if you are in the position you're caring for someone who's elderly, or maybe they have diminished capacity and you're helping them purchase something like this, the easiest way to make sure what you're buying is legit is to check with your state department of insurance. Every agent is licensed with the state department of insurance. Every policy is licensed with the state department of insurance. So before you give anybody a dime, go online, make sure the person you're communicating with actually exists. Make sure that if they're representing an insurance company, don't call the number they give you to call the insurance company. Go online, look for the insurance company's number, and call it directly. The other thing you also want to do is ask for proof of issuance before you pay anything. Sometimes the scam agents will ask you for money before they give you any confirmation of coverage, and that should be a massive red flag. What you are supposed to get is proof of policy issuance, and then you pay the funds. So that's the biggest way to avoid the sales scams that happen when people are trying to sell you insurance.
Wow. So this is really intriguing because I could imagine, what we find many times with caregivers is that, they're perhaps not a caregiver one day, something happens, and the very next day they find themselves really totally entrenched in caregiving roles and responsibilities, unable to kind of prioritize and figure stuff out, So for our individuals out there today that maybe have some ability to educate themselves now and really try to gain some knowledge, can you talk a little bit about how financial literacy, as well as educating oneself around these products, as well as really protecting your loved one and your own interest, and how an individual can go about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think the best way to really go about it is in some ways not to generalize, to try and figure out, how do I become financially literate? What information are you going to go to overall
Yeah.
become financially literate? I think you try and specify, you try and really dig into the things that you're confronting. When it comes to long-term care insurance specifically, if you're asking questions about that, by far the best way to get um, a prize is just to know what it is, to know how it works, to know what the options are, to know what the different but yeah, the different policy provisions are, and know what you're actually buying. And a lot more than that, I think a more general piece of advice would be, never rely on one source of information. Never rely on one person. Getting a second opinion is really valuable. And I know, there's so many situations where people are in financial relationships where they just trust the person, um, absolutely. And the idea of questioning that is almost upsetting. But it's not necessarily all about making sure that they're not defrauding you, but it's making sure you have all of your options, and making sure um, if the person you're dealing with maybe doesn't have all of the best knowledge or all of the best
Hmm.
skills, and don't feel confined to those relationships. Use different relationships to your advantage as much as you can.
That's a really good point. I mean, one of the things we do at Caregiver Action Network is really just try to be a trusted voice for caregivers and provide, accurate and impactful information for them. And so, in your role at Kantor and Kantor, I can see just how important it is to gain the trust of individuals so that they know that you're fighting for them and that the information you're sharing is really going to be helpful for them. I'd be curious to hear from you. What other things do you think caregivers need to be made aware of as they really navigate their caregiving journey, ensuring that their loved one is really well taken care of?
Um, well, there's a few things. I mean, as far as when it comes to long-term care insurance specifically, one of the most important things to know, I think, is how the policies work and how payment is supposed to work. So the reality is the policies can be one of two ways. They can either be a pure indemnity policy, which means it pays you a certain amount a month, regardless of how you show the proof, or they only pay you compensation for the services you incurred. And if they only pay you for this compensation for the services you incurred, there are often rules in the policies of how a caregiver has to report the income, how often they have
Mhm.
to report it. And if they don't report it properly, the entire claim could be denied. I'm dealing with a case right now where the policy requires that all payments be documented via written check. Policy was written in the 60s. The caregiver accepts payment via Zelle. They've been taking Zelle. It's the only way the caregiver do it. And they denied the entire claim because they used Zelle instead of written paper checks. And we plan to have a lot of fun with that case, frankly, because we think it's absurd. But those little explosions can be like those landmines can be sitting there in a policy, and if you don't know about it, it could really hurt. Another thing is some of these policies will allow family members to be caregivers. Some of them will not. That is one of the biggest
Yeah.
problems we see is people don't know whether their policy allows their family member to be a caregiver, and that a family member caring for you in a lot of people's situation is part of their financial plan. So if you can't do that, everything goes out the window. So those things are really important to know. It's also important to designate someone, a third party designee, when it comes to long term care insurance information. What often happens is someone buys a policy, when they're younger, and they designate themselves as the person to, or their spouse. But then 20 years passes, their spouse may have died, and they may not have the full faculties to manage the policy properly. But
Yeah.
they're the only one getting information about lapse notices for the premium payments and information. And so, one really important thing is to, if you can, get involved with the communication about the long-term care insurance policy with the insurer so you know what is actually happening. I mean, one of the things that's really frustrating me lately, what insurance companies are doing is sending out forms to people when their premiums are about to go up before they file the claim, when they're in their 80s or even 90s, and saying, hey, your premium's about to go up, but if you want, you can waive your coverage and we'll give you a $25,000 check. That for a lot of people are like, whoa, how fantastic. They're waiving 600, 700, $800,000 in benefits by dotting that line. And people often don't find out they've done it till a few years later. They file the claim. They're hoping for $600,000 in coverage for the next 10 years, and they have nothing. And
Yeah.
that's something that is allowed by state departments of insurance, and I don't know why. I do not know why insurance companies are allowed to do it. I kick and scream all the time when I get the chance to, but no one seems to be listening quite yet. But that's a big thing that really frustrates me about insurance companies.
Yeah, no, thank you for making that point because part of this is really as we talk about National Family Caregivers Month and providing information out there, empowerment is a really big part of this. And the examples you gave and ones that I could even think of that I've seen is taking away the power. Unfortunately, what leaves a caregiver really just feeling as if they have nowhere to turn and they have no one to advocate for them. And so understanding what that empowerment looks like, understanding how you can protect yourself from some of these, but as you put it, being able to connect with someone and understand what your options are, what your steps are. And at the end of the day, that rule of, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is a really good lesson for folks to take away from it. Andrew, this has been an amazingly enlightful conversation with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time. It's very clear that you and your firm just are there for caregivers when they need it, and individuals that really need to have a guided look at how they engage with a very complex healthcare system and insurance system. And so, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure, and it's been really fun talking to you. And I hope some of this was helpful to people listening.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And as a part of our ongoing webinar series, CAN's Plug into Care Resources Hub is available to the general public at nfcmonth.org, and the upcoming sessions throughout the month can be found there. Just a reminder, that everyone with us today is able to find support and community just only a click away. And so don't miss the rest of our Care Connections webinars throughout this month in understanding that, the strength that we find in community is really what makes this a difference. Being able to plug into care and find the resources you need. We'll also be talking later this month about intergenerational caregiving and balancing the act of caring for parents and kids, while, by the way, making sure to look out for yourself. And then, of course, talking about turning your voice into action and advocacy. So just a big thanks. And we'll move on to the next part of our program today. Now I'd like to welcome and introduce Kathy Stokes. Kathy's the Director for Fraud Prevention Programs at AARP's Fraud Watch Network. Kathy leads AARP's social mission work to educate older adults on the risks that fraud represents in their financial security. Since 2019, Kathy and her team have expanded AARP's leadership in this space by mounting a national campaign to change the narrative on how we talk about fraud victims and guiding an effort to fundamentally transform how our country addresses fraud. Kathy currently serves on the advisory council to the board of the International Association of Financial Crimes Investigators and on the advisory council to the Senior Issues Committee of the North American Securities Administrators Association. And Kathy also serves on the Federal Reserve Working Group on Scam Information Sharing.
Hello, and thanks for joining me today to talk about the fraud landscape and some guidance for caregivers. Thank you to the Caregiver Action Network for inviting me on to talk about this issue for National Family Caregivers Month. I'm glad you're all here. I'm Kathy Stokes, the Director of Fraud Prevention Programs for AARP. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the Fraud Watch Network is, that is our social mission work in this space. I'm going to explain why we are in a fraud crisis, why scams even work to begin with, importantly, seeing fraud victims as crime victims. And then we'll talk about the importance of talking, especially from the perspective of intergenerational talking when we're talking about family caregivers caring for older adults in their lives. And I'll share some resources for you too. So AARP Fraud Watch Network is kind of half prevention and half support of victims. And the prevention part, we have a great website, aarp.org/fraud watch network, where you can learn about all of the things that are available to consumers of any age. We have watchdog alert newsletters that you can sign up for every other week. It takes a single scam and breaks it down for you, really, really easy to follow and great to share with others. We also have a hit podcast, The Perfect Scam, and a range of other resources. And if you get the AARP bulletin, you'll see fraud covered in there all the time. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that one of the biggest resources we have are more than 700 volunteers around the country that we call our volunteer fraud fighters that go out into community with a message of fraud prevention. So that's the education part. And then we're also all about trying to change things in society that would make it better for this whole fraud crisis situation. One has to do with trying to change the narrative on victim blaming, which we'll talk about. Aspen Institute recently released a paper basically calling for the first ever national fraud strategy. And AARP was a big part of that. And then we have a new National Elder Fraud Coordination Center, which is a nonprofit that is trying to help companies and their fraud data connect to law enforcement and their fraud data to be able to tie these cases together to make them very large cases to go after the bad guys. And then on the victim support front, we have a fraud helpline. The number is right there, 877-908-3360. It's a helpline, not a hotline, so it's not 24/7. But they are there for you. And if you're not sure about something, if someone that you love and care about is in the midst of a scam and you're trying to convince them, if you know someone or you yourself has been affected by fraud, call this number. You'll talk to trained specialists who are committed to this work, and it's a judgment-free zone, and they will help you figure out what happened and what to do going forward. Also importantly, the emotional impact of fraud is sometimes even worse than the financial, even when the financial is ruinous. So we created a fraud support group program where we bring together victims and a trained facilitator to tell their story, understand that they're not alone and it's not their fault. And it's been extraordinarily healing for so many people. You can learn more about that at aarp.org/fraud support. So here's why we call it a fraud crisis. What's happening out there, just not in our country, but around the world. Just looking at the United States, data from the Federal Trade Commission suggests that as much as $158.3 billion left our economy in a single year, 2023, to fraud. That equates to $300,000 every single minute. And if you look at the older adult population, $61.5 billion, it could have been as much as to, again, in 2023. And if you want to try to break that down, think about that, $2,000 a second being stolen from our nation's older adults. And it's really important to understand that we're not just talking about some guy in his mom's basement anymore. He's probably still out there somewhere, but the much larger problem is organized crime. We are seeing cartels like the Mexico's, the New Gen Jalisco cartel involved in timeshare resale scams to be able to support their fentanyl trade going over our southern border, for example. There are scam compounds in Southeast Asia where as many as 250,000 people are enslaved to be the frontline scammers to come after Americans and Europeans largely. We have fraud as a service. You don't need to know the scam life cycle to be able to conduct one. You can buy what you don't have or what you're not as good as. Tools to scale with the technology that's getting cheaper to really get out to many more potential victims, and tools to perfect. And by that, I'm talking about artificial intelligence. It just makes these scams so much harder to discern from whether it's real or not. This is where that $158.3 billion every year is going. Our economy is supporting organized crime because of the fraud crisis. I mentioned generative artificial intelligence, now the ability to clone voices, to create the perfect text message, the perfect email, animating still images, creating deepfake videos, new fake websites in an instant, all of these things which 3 years ago you wouldn't have imagined and 6 months ago weren't even all that great, are just getting better and better. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about why older adults are targeted. And frankly, it's because that's where the money is. We've allowed ourselves to kind of think that only older adults are targeted and that's sort of a them problem, not an us problem. And we're seeing that change. But the reality, it's where the money is. There perhaps could be a greater level of respect for authority for those scams that involve impersonating an authority figure. Isolation, we all know that is a problem. And it's really important to understand that cognitive decline sometimes plays a role in scam victimization, but certainly not all the time. And here I want to help you understand why scams succeed to begin with. And the reality is these criminals have been using a playbook for millennia. And that playbook says, if you can get that target into a heightened emotional state, what these criminals call being under the ether, then you have them. And it's about moving your brain function from logic to action through emotion. There's actually an academic term for it. It's called the amygdala hijack. So understand, all of us have the same brain type that takes us from logic right into, oh my gosh, I have to do something right away. And that's why the scams work, and really impressing upon you that is why it's not the victim's fault. So that playbook, it's generally three things we see: that unexpected contact out of the blue, 3 o'clock in the morning, grandma getting a call from her grandson, Mikey, that he's in trouble, surge of emotion. Oh my God, it's Mikey. I have to help him. It's between, it's up to me to protect him, and urgency. Mikey needs this money right away. So I have to run down and transfer $10,000. All of those the three things come together to basically evade logic. And again, I will reiterate, it is not the victim's fault. Yet, we tend to blame fraud victims for the crime they've experienced. And again, I see this changing over the years, but we did some research back about 3 years ago, and over half identify victims as culpable and blameworthy in this country. A third of us say that, honestly, if you fall victim, a lot of that is on you. And nearly half think reporting is a lost cause. Turns out we do blame the victim, but we don't really mean it. We learned this in our research. It's just that we're so accustomed to how we talk about scams, like, oh my God, why did you answer your phone? Or how much money did you give them? Or how could you be so stupid? What were you thinking? We don't know when we're doing that how harmful that is to the victim. We also have that sense of American sense of rugged individualism, sort of pull yourself up from your bootstraps. What happens to you is on you. And attribution bias. It must be something about that person that caused them to be a victim. So we have the reasons why, but we also know that we don't really mean it, so we can change it. So I want to talk a little bit about how we talk about it, even before fraud ever happens. It is so ubiquitous. Each of us probably already knows somebody who's experienced a loss, money stolen from them through scams and fraud. But if you don't, you will, and it'll be somebody that you know and love. So before it even happens, recognize the level of sophistication that goes into these scams from organized criminal enterprises. Understand that all of us face the risk of being victimized. Bring fraud out of the shadows and into discussions, and help grow understanding in your circle of fraud as a crime, not as something the victim did wrong. So if fraud happens to a loved one, instead of saying you got scammed, how could you fall for that, or using verbs like duped, swindled, tricked, how about saying this: you experienced a crime. I am so sorry this happened to you. It's not your fault. You see, we're moving here from implying blames, which inspires shame, versus showing empathy and empowering the victim. And also, when we talk about this crime, let's talk about the criminals and perpetrators, rather than fraudsters. Sounds kind of cute. Even scammer and con artists, it just gives them a little bit too much credit. So instead of saying things like, she gave him her money, how about a criminal stole her money? And in the end, talk. And then talk some more. We are in this together, and it's up to us as family caregivers to the older adults in our life is to empower them to help protect one another. If you talk about scams on a regular basis, you can put it in the perspective of like, look, Dad, this is happening everywhere. I need you to be on the lookout. I need me to be on the lookout, and we're going to share information to protect each other. Give that older adult in your life that sense of empowerment, and maybe then they'll start even looking for signs that something incoming is a fraud. And if you learn something, if you sign up for the AARP Fraud Watch Network watchdog alerts, share it and ask the people in your circle to do the same. The more we're talking about this, the more we normalize it, the more we have this opportunity to protect others. There's a piece of data from many years ago now, probably 5 or 6 years ago, that says if you know about a specific scam, you are 80% less likely to engage with it. And if you do, you're 40% less likely to lose money or sensitive information. So let that be your reason to begin these conversations. We have some resources on how to change that victim blaming narrative at aarp.org/say this. I would encourage you to go and check it out and try to bring some of those changes into your own vocabulary. And at the end, we just want to share the resources that we do have here at AARP for anybody. The Fraud Watch Network website, our fraud victim support program that I told you about. Words Matter is the professional page for what I just introduced you to as Say This. And if you'd like to, you can get your phone out and use this QR code to put the helpline phone number right into your contact list. You're thinking, well, maybe you would never need it, but maybe someone that you love will, and you'll have ready access to that kind of help. So that ends our discussion. Thank you for coming and spending some time. Bye.
Hi there, my name is Nicole Goble, and I'm the Director of Community Initiatives here at Caregiver Action Network. I'm really excited to walk you through some of our new resources for NFC Month that we put into a hub so that it's, of course, easily navigatable by all the folks that may be searching around and looking for some new resources. So, as you can see, we start here at nfcmonth.org, where everything starts. So now I'm going to scroll down onto our page to get us to the hub. Now, as you can see, the hub, very nice little tiles that do a little dance for us when we highlight them, but it shows the different resources in various disease and condition areas, which is very, very cool. So, for example, we of course have a lot around Alzheimer's, so this shows all of our resources so that folks can have everything in one little area. I want to spend just a moment highlighting some of the conditions here, but then also showing some of the new resources that we have. So, tardive dyskinesia, Alzheimer's disease, incontinence care. We have acute pain, rare diseases, ATTR amyloidosis, which we just did a roundtable on not too long ago and created a resource there, schizophrenia, long-term care, insurance denials, and caregiver rights. So really getting into some of the legal/financial issues that caregivers have to navigate. Mental health. In the last handful of months, we've been really ramping up our resources around mental health, both caring for an individual with a mental health diagnosis, such as schizophrenia, post-traumatic stress disorder, and also, we have a slew of resources about how caregivers can prioritize their own mental health, which is obviously important because we know that caregiving can take a toll physically, mentally, and emotionally. So as you can see here, as we go a little bit further down, we've got cancer, addiction, and substance abuse, which will direct you. Let's go over here to our Families, Addiction, and Mental Health Network, which is another one of our recent resources that really zeroes in on the journey of caring for a loved one with addiction, which is such a crucial resource to have in your pocket. Brain health. So all of the conditions that may deal with some of mental health, but also TBI, etc. Scrolling down a little bit more, we've got movement disorders and mobility limitations, general aging, neurological conditions, technology information. Then we have some resources here that go beyond treatment. Just want to flag this. We have help for cancer caregivers, the partners along the patient journey with our partners from Magnolia, One Liver to Love information and resources for people living with liver cancer. So this is really resources that are getting you in the trenches of a caregiving journey and not necessarily just navigating maybe that initial diagnosis and your treatment therapy options. So we definitely want to make sure that we're highlighting those as well. But now I want to point out a couple of our new ones. Oh, and I should point out here more health conditions. So one thing that I think is really important to highlight here, we're always working. Every month is National Family Caregivers Month here at Caregiver Action Network. And so there will be more resources that are dropped in throughout the month, but also just down the line. We're really looking at this as a starting point for us to continue the development of these resources and so many more. So just to highlight a few of our new resources here, I want to go over to neurological. Here you'll see that we have pages that focus in on caring for a loved one with ALS. So now I'm going to get us over to this page, and you can get a little taste of what these resources entail. So we have here just a little bit about the condition, a little bit of the background, what it is. Then we decided to highlight maybe 3 of the tips that caregivers should know. And like I said, this is really a starting point. There's obviously more than 3 tips that really help a caregiver navigate the day-to-day challenges of caregiving. And so, but we wanted to just start off with 3. What are maybe 3 of the crucial things that caregivers need to have in mind? And then resources. This is really exciting. As you can see, we have our resources off here to the right, where we're pinpointing things that are within kind of the Caregiver Action Network toolbox, but then we're also highlighting partner resources. So the ALS Association, I am ALS, everything ALS, the caregiver space. These are places where they have some really vital and wonderful resources around ALS and supporting a loved one with ALS. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were plugging these in. Many of these partners have signed on to be National Family Caregiver Month partners with us this year and have been really instrumental in helping us put together these resources. So let me go back to nfcmonth.org here. Just a second. Here we are. And as you can see here, I'm going to highlight one more. In neurological, where we were, I'm going to show you caring for a loved one with myasthenia gravis. So here, again, very much the same kind of scenario here, getting into what the condition is, going into those tips, and then highlighting some resources. We have some really amazing partnerships with some MG organizations, the Myasthenia Gravis Association of the Heartland, the Myasthenia Gravis Association of America, just to name a few. And so we are really happy to have both the Myasthenia Gravis Association of the Heartland and the Myasthenia Gravis Association of America as NFC Month partners. So really, really excited to have them on board this year. They've also been partners in previous years, and so really wanted to highlight some of the resources that they have as well. So that gives you a taste, just a taste of this amazing hub that we have for folks who are navigating resources. But now, as I have been highlighting some of our partners, let's go back. And I want to highlight even more of our National Family Caregiver Month nonprofit partners and show you the categories that we've lumped them into. I think this is really, really great. So if you scroll down further on the nfcmonth.org website here, you will find yourself here. Keep going, keep going. Here we are. The Meet Our Nonprofit Partners. This is wonderful. So we click on this, and here we go. We have a pretty robust list of National Family Caregiver Month partners. So as you can see here, just here at the top, we have them broken down into 3 categories: disease specific, and health-related agencies, so really focusing in on some of those patient advocacy orgs that operate within a specific disease or diagnosis. We have caring for elders or for aging individuals, and then we have support organizations, info, and advocacy. And these are some of the organizations that are really operating within the caregiver space. So let me just show you what these lists look like and some of the organizations that are connected here. So if we go down to disease-specific organizations here, as you can see, quite the list, right? But we're really excited to have both, what we call our returning friends, folks who have been NFC uh, month partners for quite some time, and new folks as well. Some of our new NFC month partners this year, we have the Angelman Syndrome Foundation, which is amazing. The IGAN Foundation. We have also the um, scrolling down here, Just Trying It, which we're really excited to have a cancer organization. As you can see, we have a number of them, but Just Trying It is such an amazing organization that we're really, really excited to have on board this year. And the Pulmonary Fibrosis Foundation as well. So we're really hitting a lot of different disease and conditions here. And as you can see, as we scroll down, we have a really robust list and really running the gamut here of different conditions. For example, we have some that are a little bit more general. So, some of those coalitions that have lots of different organizations are highlighted here. I think the COPD Action Alliance is one of them that we have listed here. But then we have things like Mended Hearts, which is an organization that does amazing work around a lot of different, cardiac conditions. So really excited to have such a diverse group of organizations here. Now scrolling down into caring for elders, as you can see here, lots of different organizations that focus in on aging resources as well as respite care. We have the Gerontological Society of America, which so excited to have them on board. They're a returning partner and just really amazing resources and guidance around supporting a loved one who is older. Because we know that whether it's caring for a loved one with a specific condition or caring for an older loved one, there's going to be a lot of uniqueness in those caregiving journeys. And so being able to have a robust list of resources that we can direct folks to in addition to our resources is really crucial. Now, one thing I do want to highlight here is that, as you can see, we got a little plus mark. So when you hit this, it not only gives you a little bit of the organization and their mission, but you can link right to it and go to their website. This is a really great approach so that folks also have that awareness that they're navigating away from nfcmonth.org and CAN's website to explore some different websites as well. So we also have No Age, the New Orleans advocates for LGBTQ plus elders. Really excited to have them on board. So we're really running a gamut here of different organizations, providing different kinds of resources. And then here, caregiver support organizations, information, and advocacy. So this is where we're getting you into organizations that really support family caregivers. So Courage the Caregivers, Sandwiched KC, which is a local-based caregiver organization. And so again, if you click here, it gives you a little bit about the work that they're doing, how they serve family caregivers in Kansas City. So really excited to have them on board. So as you can see, lots of different organizations. Some are patient advocacy orgs that are more general, but also include resources and supports for family caregivers. So just really excited to have such a robust group on board. So I really hope that this gives you a taste of some of the resources that we have available as part of our hub. This is such an exciting year. Plug into care is such an amazing, I think, theme to really explore lots of different resources, as really a crux of the theme is about helping caregivers navigate the slew of resources that they need to be able to provide the support for their loved one that is necessary. So thank you so much for letting me walk you through some of these resources. As always, our contact information is available. So if you do have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out. But like I said, I think it's really important to look at these resources as really being a stepping stone. We really are excited to, in the future, continue to build on what we have here and create more as we always do. So thank you so much.
I just want to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors that have really made this webinar series possible and our entire Plug into Care campaign. As you can see here, it represents organizations across the country and across the globe that center caregiving in everything they do and making it possible for family caregivers across the country to really be there for their loved ones, feel supported, and ensure that really they can do their best by ensuring that their loved ones can thrive. So thanks so much to our sponsors. And in addition to that, I want to make sure everyone has the information they need. So reach out to us in any way that is most comfortable for you. Do it often. And you can reach out to us on the web at caregiveraction.org. But also know that we're just a phone call away at our Caregiver Help Desk, our National Caregiver Help Desk, which also now has a downloadable app that you can find. And so feel free to check that out. As always, our resources are of no cost to caregivers. And so whether you engage with us through our website, through our social media, welcome you to join our Facebook group as well. But no matter what, just know you are not alone, and Caregiver Action is here to stay connected with you.